Good evening, everybody. We have the first of at least three total videos that will be coming over the course of the next few weeks about Ivan Ryabkin. Matthew, welcome back, my friend.
Thanks for having me on. Good to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So, long story short, we have an immense amount of footage of Ivan Ryabkin. We were going to use it tonight, but we have so damn much of it thanks to a friend of ours who we can't mention. We have so damn much of it that I need to organize it and figure out what we do want to use and set it up in a constructive manner, all that type of stuff. And then we will have an abundance of analysis of raw video and with graphics and stuff and everything like that of Ryabkin. I just need some time to get it in order. We were going to use some tonight, like I said, but it just, we can use this as a primer to let everybody know me and his personal thoughts on Ryabkin, what we've noticed, because we've been watching him for a while. We were watching him at the draft last year and everything like that. We've been watching him this year. So, and there's a lot of people really excited about him, especially considering Carolina's organizational depth is not that great at this position. So, Matthew, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, and I'm excited to dive in here. Just I thought I'd start with giving like a quick little refresher course for our audience on how we got this player. So, in his D-1 year, Ryabkin in the Russian juniors scored, I think, the second most points of all time in Russian juniors, and that had him beginning his draft year very, very high. He was the top. He was projected to go in the top 10 to start last season. But last season was an enormous adventure. He did not. He wanted to be in the KHL, but he and the management there didn't see eye to eye. He didn't get hardly any playing time there in the pro leagues. So when he was put down to juniors, some would say that he was phoning it in because he didn't want to be there, and indeed he did. Basically say that he had enough of being in the Russian system and went to North America when he played in the USHL and played very well. And although, depending on who you talk to, depending on the scouts that you talk to, he was still an extremely polarizing prospect going into the draft. We had talked about him extensively in our draft previews. He was one of the players. In fact, I think the first player that I'm going on that I went on the record as mentioning that I wanted the Hurricanes to take, because that talent just doesn't vanish. Yeah, there were issues with how he was, with what he was doing in Russia, and sometimes when you and the management don't see eye to eye, there's the best solution is just to move on, and so that's what happened with him, and of course his draft stock essentially plummeted. He went from being probably a top 10 pick, definitely the best Russian considered in the draft, to all the way back to 62nd overall where the Hurricanes selected him. And I'm still ecstatic because, again, the talent doesn't just vanish. He is still a top 10 talent. And he's been showing it, especially in the last several weeks. But first, let's start with how his year began. So he signed his entry level contract right out of being drafted as a second round pick, which not the first time it's happened, but it's pretty rare. And so he goes to play for Chicago, and his role in Chicago is pretty interesting because not that many 18-year-olds are in the AHL, and so he's definitely essentially a kid playing amongst men, and he was pretty sheltered, fourth line minutes. But in that role there, he, as head coach Spiros Anastas has said many times in various recent interviews, he gave that fourth line an identity that they actually missed when he left the team. And he would be doing things that no 18-year-old has any right to do. But what we talked about even all the way back in his draft preview, Ryabkin is fearless. He has an enormous amount of in his game, and that is something the Hurricanes sorely need. I'm so glad they have it because people in the know that we know the name Austin Watson, right?
Yes.
That player kind of splits between NHL and AHL. He's in the AHL right now, and he's the enforcer. He's an old school enforcer, and Ryabkin within the first week of playing in the AHL is stepping up to him and not backing down an inch and challenging him, like physically. And even to the coaches, we're like, are you sure you know what you're doing here, buddy? This is not someone to be trifled with. But he doesn't care. He is the type of player that, well after the whistle, will continue to whack the goalie's pads and to deliberately agitate every single opponent. He wants them mad. He wants them to hate him. And as far as Thanasis called him, he's got a lot of Tom Wilson in him. He calls him the Russian Tom Wilson, except he's a center. So that already gets me fired up. In fact, we'll go over this tape, of course, in the coming weeks. But the only goal his stats for his time in Chicago in 25 games, he has 1 goal and 6 assists for 7 points, which again doesn't jump out at you in terms of production. But keep in mind he's playing a sheltered fourth line center role. But still, the goal he did score is exactly the kind of thing that should make us super impressed and excited. It was just that. It was hacking and whacking in the crease until it finally crossed the line. And that's everything I want a player like this to do. As we mentioned before, like he's got the fourth line center attitude with top line center talent.
That's a good combination.
It reminds me a lot of someone like Sam Bennett or Claude Giroux. And if we can get anywhere a player like that out of Ryabkin, I will be ecstatic, especially considering the organization's desperate need for a player like this.
I absolutely agree.
Those are preliminary thoughts. Go ahead, Brandon.
So I've got some notes here on him because, like I said, I was watching some of this tape. And there was so much of it. That's why I talked to you before the show about, hey, let's hold off on the tape. Because we've got a lot to talk about with this guy even before going into the tape. Mm-hmm. Because there's a potential top 6 center here. And every organization needs those. This one, a little bit more than others when you're talking about contending teams. Out of all the, contending teams, the Hurricanes need a top 6 center more than anybody. Aho's not getting any younger as well, so there's that to be considered. So here's some notes I took on him just from about the 15 minutes of video I watched today and other times that I've seen him. So there is a really high offensive upside to this guy, and incredibly high. You and I talked about it before. He has the ability to take over games. He's one of those players that you want having it on his tape when you need a goal late and you're down by 1. He is perfect for that. He's not someone you send out there to kill a critical penalty. He's not someone you necessarily send out there when the net is empty at the other end. But when it's like you need a goal, he's one of those guys that you put out there. I definitely see that type of instinct with him. As you stated, and I actually have that in my notes verbatim, fearless, not afraid to mix it up, doesn't care about the size of the opposing player, doesn't care about their reputation, their toughness, i.e. we talked about just talked about with him and Austin Watson having some of their exchanges. He has a pretty good off-puck route and net front presence mentality. He knows when to accelerate. He knows when to speed up. He knows when to slow down as far as making sure he's creating separation from defenders off the rush and everything like that. So I really liked what I saw there. And he knows when to flip the switch from making a skilled play like that to just, like you said, fourth line attitude, potential top line skill, and then just going to the front of the net and crashing it like a caveman. That, he's got all that. He's very puck hungry, particularly in the offensive zone. In the other 2 zones, not so much. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Now, I did take some time to observe him taking faceoffs. His mechanics with that I do like. And it looks to me he is more... He favors winning them to the side more than winning them back. Now, that gets a lot harder to do when you play at the NHL or the AHL level because you're faced off against much better centermen all the time, especially if he plays a role like he's going to play where he would be on, theoretically, he would be on the power play a lot and stuff like that. So that's going to get difficult for him to maintain as he plays in higher levels. But I prefer that mentality because then you get a lot quicker of a shot off that way if you have a competent winger who can do that very fast. Especially, like, let's talk about in the future if Bradley Nadeau is to his left, a right-handed shot on that side. Mm-hmm. And he goes about a foot to the right of that hash mark on a right side face-off. Ryabkin wins him that puck, and then you have that shot of Bradley Nadeau getting off with next to no reaction time available to those defending and the goalie. He's very strong. Like I noticed that like when he has possession of the puck and people try to push him off of it, if he wants to make a little chip play, it's not hard for him to do. He doesn't really have to load it up. He just kind of has to flick his wrist, and that puck is around the boards or wherever he wants it to be. That's a good thing to have. Here's what I have concerns with, but this is nothing that's a secret. The defensive side of his game is what I think is going to be what takes the longest to get it to where it needs to be for him to play at the NHL level on a regular basis. I don't think it's laziness. I think it's a lack of knowledge. Because his skating is good. Speed is not going to be what he makes his money on. He's going to drive possession in ways sort of like Matvei Michkov does, where he just uses his body to protect the puck, knows how to use his hands, knows when to extend his arms and when to pull the puck back in and everything like that. So you'll see a lot of times where he makes plays through power moves. But the defensive side of his game, I know a lot of people say he has lazy habits. I see what they're talking about with it. I don't think it's laziness. I just don't think it's necessarily in his DNA, but he does need to develop that side of his game further. So as far as the defensive side of things goes, I really want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it is still a work in progress. I actually think that the time in Chicago has done wonders for him, and he's going to need that again. So right now where he's playing in the Q, it's basically the Q is a high octane offense league. So there's not that much of that to do here. And it's clearly obvious that the Q is beneath him. He knows it. Everyone knows it. Everyone on the ice, all of his teammates
so out of place
know it. He is just he went from a kid amongst men and now he is a man amongst boys in the Q. It's not fair. For the most part, it is just not fair to his opponent whenever whenever they have to face him. He and also his teammate Nathan Leake, who actually I kind of like. I don't know if you've watched some of that tape there, but he
was on the ice with him a lot.
Yeah, it's almost automatic, that connection there, Ryabkin to Leake. Leake's the trigger man for the most part, and it's virtually unstoppable at this level. There's very little his opponents can do. So he just absolutely dominates and dominates and dominates, and it's great to see. You want to see that at the junior level for sure. But I think next year he'll go back to Chicago, and I want to see him get some increased responsibility there. I want to see him get at least second line minutes. I want to see more minutes. I want to see more responsibility defensively on him, because it's like it's sink or swim. The only way to really develop those skills is to force him to do it. And obviously the coaching will work with him, the coaching staff there, which I love. I love Spyros Anastas. I think he's a great coach. So I'm happy to see where that goes. Young players, especially from Russia, they usually take a little bit of time. They have the transition to North America. It doesn't happen immediately. So it's defensive awareness that he needs to develop more. It, like you said, it's not a lack. I don't think it is a lack of effort. I just think it's a lack of know-how, and it's just something he has to work on. And but I don't see him. I see him giving a damn. So that's really what I want from my offensively minded players, that you have to at least give a damn defensively, and I see that. Again, not the competency level isn't where we want it to be, but I think that the effort is there.
Yeah, I agree. And, you can see in the way that he plays, with the attitude that he plays with, which I know was part of the concern that kind of plummeted his draft stock, in addition to the geopolitical stuff that's been going on to a few years, Russia bad, all that type of stuff. I do see that player that cares, and he wants to be good at those things. But like you said, the transition from playing it overseas, especially in Russia, if you're talking about Europe as a whole, but especially in Russia to North America, it's very, very different. I don't know what's more different, playing baseball in Japan and then coming to America, or playing hockey in Russia and then coming to North America. It's hard to tell which one is more different. I'd have to wager hockey, to be honest. But I do see that there, but there's a lot of times where, like, I would notice in these videos, he would start to back check, he would get near somebody, he would like pull up on the gap a little bit too early and swipe the stick a little bit too early, trying to go for a poke check. Now, one thing, and I'm sure I'll see it at some point from looking at the video, you and I were both concerned initially, before he was drafted and when he was drafted, that he would be bad about chasing hits. I have not seen that.
Not a
very
bit.
much.
Not a bit.
That was our biggest concern about him the entire time. was him chasing hits. If that is not a problem that they have to solve, that is much more time they can allocate to other things, and that is going to fast track his development a little bit more.
Yeah, something else to mention that it's kind of I was so happy to hear this because it confirms everything that we've said about him already and shows that we actually know what we're talking about. Spiros Anastas did an interview with Tom Ray on his channel. Shout out to Tom Ray, the Storm Tracker.
Yes, absolutely. Tom Ray's good people.
Yeah, and one of the things he said there was that he's those player where you have to rein in his energy, which is much easier than trying to coax it out. And I'm like, we said that before he was ever on your team, and so that just makes us look good. And so I'm happy to see that he is that player where, if anything, he just needs to be reined in more than like the frustrating where you have to coax it out of him. He does not have that problem. He tries to do too much. I say that he tries to be too involved in the play, but the thing is, what that also does is it drives play. And that's one thing I was so like to see him, especially at the Q. He is driving the play of that team almost single-handedly every night.
Yes.
Like Nathan Leak, who again his kind of partner in crime there. All he has to do is shoot the puck, and because Ryabkin kept feeding him, and he's just feeding him and feeding him and feeding him, and it's glorious to behold. And he's carving through that league. It's not
so
fair.
Speaking of Nathan Leak, because his game really impressed me as well. Is this someone? So he's not been drafted yet. He would
Not
be
drafted.
In the next,
I'm drafted. Yep.
Yeah, he would be in the next class, would he not? Or no, he's 20.
He's 20
so
years old.
He's
so
an overager.
Yep. He's double overage right now. I don't know that he'll ever. Can he even be picked now at age 20? I think 20 is the last year you can get picked, right?
Yeah, because so it says he's going to Ferris State for 26-27. So he's
going to NCAA.
Yeah, that's what it says right there. So he's already committed to that, it looks like. But because right now in the queue, we'll just go off on this tangent. 64 games played, 49 goals, 37 assists for a total of 86 points.
Not bad at all.
Not one bit at all. But yeah, him and Ryabkin they do not look like they belong in that league. They really don't. They look like ex-pros playing in the pickup games I play in at 10:30 at night on Saturday or something. Like it's absolutely insane. If the Hurricanes took a flyer on Nathan Leak,
I wouldn't hate it.
Sign him undrafted. I mean, I'm not opposed to that because I noticed him as much as I noticed Ryabkin. And it's a low risk signing. It's not like, oh, this guy has to make it to the show. It's just he's a depth signing until he proves otherwise. That's something I'm not opposed to.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad you mentioned it because watching them work together and the almost instant chemistry they develop too. That's kind of nice to see. And even though Leak plays, I think he's basically a left-handed right wing.
Yeah.
Whereas Nadeau would be a right-handed left wing. But as long as I can see almost like a similar dynamic possibly happening between Ryabkin and Nadeau if that connection ever hooks up.
I do want to see that in the future one day.
That'd be pretty fun. That'd be pretty fun.
Nadeau and Ryabkin up front while Legault and Nikishin are back there vaporizing people.
See, and that's the thing. So let's actually just look at what he has done. This team, the Charlottetown Islanders, in the queue when he got there. He has played 19 games for Charlottetown, and all he's done is 12 goals and 29 assists for 41 points in 19 games. It's just absurd. This is like Sidney Crosby was putting up those kind of numbers when he was in the queue. Yeah. It is that level of just ridiculous. And I like to see, even though Ryabkin has a really, really good shot and some great finishing instincts that we'll go over when we go over tape in the future. I like to see that he is not people say he's selfish. He doesn't drive enough pace. I am seeing the opposite here. I am seeing he is absolutely driving pace. He is driving the center lane, forcing defenders back and finding the open man. He is just doing everything I want to see from the center ice position offensively.
That actually reminds me of something. There's two things can be true at once, but this is not one of them. You cannot be someone who is selfish and do something I've noticed Ryabkin is really good at, and that's slowing the play down when he has possession of the puck. Selfish players are not good at that because there's no point in them being good at it. There's no point in slowing the play down if you're just not going to pass the puck and drive the net anyway. That's not what he always does. there's a lot of times where he has possession of it and he manages to slow the play down and kind of, take note of everything going on around him and select the best passing option and everything. So I don't think he's an overly selfish player at all. Not from what I've seen.
Not a bit. Now, I do want to see, of course, what still would be the question mark is that, of course, because the queue is the way it is, that he will not have the kind of time and space in the higher leagues that he's getting right now. So his decision making will have to be very on point. He'll have to come fast. But that's not to say he can't do it. I think he can, and that's why I think that basically 25 game stint in the AHL is going to do wonders for his development. It just needs to go forward. And just as far as the timeline is concerned, I think that after one full year in the AHL, that's what I want to see for him next year. I want to see a full year in the AHL for him. After that, I think he's got a shot to make the team.
All righty. So my appraisal of it is not as optimistic. I think it's somewhere more between 3 and 5. Now,
Okay.
that being said, you know me, how heavy I am on the defensive side of things.
Fair.
I might be looking too much into that in that regard. I think his defensive game is what's going to keep him from being able to make it to the Hurricanes in less than 3, counting this year.
Fair enough. I'd say I at least want to see him get a full year in the AHL before I could make that decision. If everything goes right, I think that's what I say. He has a chance to make the team in 2 seasons. You're right. It's probably more likely than not that he'll have to at least 2 more years in the AHL. But I think if everything goes right, he could surprise us and make the jump sooner.
Okay. Yeah, it's just I know that I'm a little, when it comes to the defensive side of things, I'm a little more, I look at that in probably more detail than I should. To be perfectly fair. That's part of the reason that I brought you on, is because there's times where I'm kind of I'm a little overbearing on that side of the game for every player.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, I might be overhyping just because I'm seeing the ridiculously how talented he is offensively, and knowing how much we need that, and how much we need the physical FU side of things as well, which he already has in spades. So maybe I'm just, I guess, too optimistic that I want this on the team now. I want this on the Hurricanes right now, even though it's true he's probably not ready yet, and it probably will take, I say, at least a year, probably 2.
Yeah, I'm thinking right now 3. 3 is what I think. Okay. And my primary reasons are the defensive side of the game not being where it needs to be. And now, granted, he's in the queue. You're not expected to play defense really in the queue, like we talked about. It's an offense-only league, basically. That's part of the reason I don't really ever watch it, is because it's like the same thing with people who don't watch the NBA but they watch college basketball because there's still defense in college basketball. That's why I don't watch the queue, is because there's no defense in it, and that just, I can't stand that. So that's where I'm if they ever bring 2-line pass back to a league, that's the one that needs it the most. If you ask me. But I think that like you're saying, if everything does go right, you could see him in 2. That's totally possible. I don't think it's likely personally, but it seems like the queue, a place where there's not a ton of defense, would be a good place for him to start building a more dominant defensive game. And I'm not expecting him to be Jordan Staal level of defensively capable. I don't even expect him to be Sebastian Aho level of defensively capable. But it does have to come very far from where it is right now, I think, before he's NHL ready, even with defensively competent wingers beside him. And another reason I want him to really develop that side of his game, I do want to see him playing with someone like Bradley Nadeau in the future, or someone like Jackson Blake in the future, and him be able to drive possession through defense, creating possession through defense, so that those guys have it on their tape more often.
What a line that would be. Of Ryabkin, Nadeau, and Blake. Oh, my goodness.
And nobody would ever touch Nadeau or Blake because obvious reasons.
Like Ryabkin's going to go barreling ahead, and he is the kind of person that will accidentally, on purpose, run into the goalie.
Yeah.
And you can hate that. I definitely hate it when it's used against us, but there's no doubt it's effective. And in the playoffs, when those kind of things are let go more often than not, you might as well use it to your advantage. If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, and if you have a player who's capable of doing that and willing to, you might as well turn them loose a little bit and let them do it.
Mm-hmm. and he is more than willing to do so, which is again that's something that I'd be killed to have my kingdom for that on the Hurricanes right now. I kind of wanted them to maybe see if Claude Giroux was someone that would be available, uh, for a trade. I guess not. Ottawa thinks they can make the playoffs. They probably can't. But the fact that I think we can get that kind of player. Tell me if you think that's a fair comp, because I do see a lot of. I mean, Giroux is not the fastest skater. Neither was Bennett.
When you and I
But
talked about it when we did our first preview of that draft before
uh-huh.
Carolina drafted him, yeah, that's who you compared him to, and I
Mhm.
think it's totally accurate there. I really do. He's got that gritty side of his game. He's very skilled, and see, the thing is, it's like, yeah, the foot speed's a factor and everything, but not every single forward on the team has to constantly have 22-mile-per-hour bursts. Now, that being said, Ryabkin did lose about 7 pounds between the time he was drafted and going to train or the prospect camp the first time.
Mhm.
That's that's a world of difference. When you're on or when you're doing anything, whether it's a sport where you run or if you're on skates
Yeah,
like in hockey. 7 pounds is a big difference. It
there's a
doesn't
lot.
sound like much, but that can make a difference. So, like, and we'll talk about this on the main channel one day. The Mason McTavish discussion is going to start up again here, I
Mhm.
think, over summer. I really do. And
Yep.
I'm more on board with that than I am EP40, by miles. But
Mhm.
the whole thing about it is, when it comes to Rabkin, I do see, like, there's still some growth there physically to be done. He last clocked in at 5'11", but he's only 19 now, right? So there's still
Yeah.
probably a little bit of growing for him to do. And even at his height, even though he's sub 6 foot last time it was said, he's still got a lot of reach. The posture in which he skates allows him a lot of reach. And that's part of the reason that he's able to drop his shoulder and do a lot of the power moves that he does. When he does have a defender on him and he can't create time and space through skating, he can do it by using his body to protect the puck. So when he's capable of doing stuff like that, and he's still growing possibly, he can get another step in as far as his speed is
Yeah.
concerned, and he'll have more resources as far as coaching and stuff goes to be able to do something like that. He can trim up another 5 pounds and get
Yeah.
a little bit leaner, put some more muscle on from the core on down,
Hmm.
and he could pick up that extra step of speed, because the difference between someone who skates at like a 21.75 mile per hour speed burst and a 22 mile per hour speed burst, that's a big difference, and the
Yeah.
higher you get, the bigger of a difference it is in isolation and little
That's the
situations.
difference between a breakaway and a one-on-one.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
that's the difference between you getting to a loose puck before somebody else. That's the difference. But
Hmm.
name whatever situation you want.
Hmm.
So, and that's part of the reason why players from over that way, even though a lot of the KHL has adopted the 200 by 85 ice, and some of them have the Finnish style 200 by 90 ice, that's why a lot of them have adopted or have a harder time when they first initially come to North America. With him, that's not so much as a problem since he was in Muskegon already, and
Right.
then he went to the AHL, and now he's in the Q. So he's adapted pretty much, or by now he's pretty much adapted to the pace of the game as far as the ice surface is concerned. But I do think that he can pick up another step in his speed, and if he is the slowest forward on the team, as long as he's able to create those good off puck routes going to the net, and he's able to throw the body and not take a ton of penalties and maintain the identity of his game, I don't care if he's the slowest forward on the team, as long as he's not miles behind the pace of the game.
No, that's totally fair. And what I think, though, which all the things that you've mentioned, though, can really separate him in terms of what his true ceiling actually is. And this is where I mean, this maybe is wild-eyed optimism, but you know me. I guess I just kind of go crazy when I see our prospects, and maybe I expect too much of them. But with all the offensive talent that I see, I do think if everything goes right, and he does the things that you mentioned, he will probably, well, probably, if everything goes right, he will be the number one center on the Hurricanes at some point in the future. Once Aho starts to, get into the mid 30s and whatnot, when he starts to be like 33, 34.
We've only got
Yeah,
about 4 years until we have to
I
start
know.
having that conversation.
Yeah, I know. I know. And that's why I think, though, if everything goes right, this is still if everything goes right. It's not necessarily the most likely scenario, but it's definitely a possible scenario. I'd say the chance of this is at least 20%, that he develops well to the point where he can be a first line center. And I think if he gains a step, if he develops that defensive competence, even if it's not the most like Jordan Stahl defensive, like not asking for a Selke, but if he's competent enough defensively, he's got the offensive talent to be a first line center in the NHL.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I want him to develop that defensive side of his game is because of the play driving that he does do, the plays with possession that he does manage to make. The vision on this guy is really good, and one of the ways you
Shot's
have the
great
puck,
too.
his
He can
shot
hammer
is
that.
great. He's really good at getting it through traffic. But that's one of the reasons I really want that defensive side of the game to develop because that's that much more often that he has the puck. Ryabkin is someone I want having the puck as much as possible.
Yep. He drives like everything. He drives the plays when he's got the puck, barreling down on defenders, and especially it is the Q again. But they don't know what to do. They have no answer for him, and he's just having his way. He's playing with his food, and I don't know. It's great. It is fun to watch. It is fun to watch him, and he's got also the physical capabilities to just to lower that shoulder and barrel into the net and barrel into the goalie and just pile up bodies and stack him in the crease. He can do that too. Again, fearless, absolutely fearless. I mentioned it bears repeating that he will just continuously post whistle whack at the goaltender and make sure every single opponent pounces on him. And often, they'll come out like on the man advantage because he draws like some kind of retaliation. He's that type of guy. Again, probably too optimistic to say in 2 years, but golly, I want that on this team so much right now.
Yeah, it could be really helpful. And a player with an attitude like his and a skill set like his, that's one of those guys that maybe doesn't wow you a ton during the regular season, but can elevate his game in the playoffs, like we've seen with someone like Sam Bennett.
Yeah. And so, Russian Tom Wilson, except at center. In fact, I'm not sure that there are that many other Russian players like him. I mean, Svechnikov is has a good power forward, but he's not enough of an asshole, I mean, whereas Ryabkin has definitely got that, just absolute F you, I don't care. He might slew foot a guy. And he might do that. He might just go over to him and just like, whoop, oops, sorry. Didn't see
I
it.
can see him saying that too. He's standing over somebody's corpse. He's like, oops, sorry.
Whoopsie. Yeah, I'll put it this way. He is a player that will get suspended at some point. I think that'll happen. I think he'll get suspended at some point. We're going to have to live with it. But if the shoe fits.
I mean, it's the nature of the game.
Wilson won a cup.
He did.
And so that also, there's the certain type, I think he's a player. We mentioned this. He's a player that Adam Gold may not like very much because he's not the gentleman. He just isn't. I mean, we all love to death Jacob Slavin and how he plays the game and how he handles himself. And not saying that Ryabkin is going to be that, much. I have no idea what he's like off the ice, but on the ice, he is going to be a menace. He is not going to be, where he just, stick checks and goes about his day. He is going to make you hate him. He's going to make his opponents hate him.
See, that's an important thing.
And he's going to enjoy it.
That's an important thing of note because I love Jacob Slavin, but you can't put a team of 18 Jacob Slavins together and win. Jacob Slavin is my favorite player, but you cannot have 18 of them and win. You need to mix something else in there because it's a physical game. It's a brutal game. You have to have some sort of answer to that. And then not to mention, every other team, especially contenders, have a player like that. You need a countermeasure to it. And he gives you one of those. So it's like, it would be nice to see, the situation last year in the playoffs where Aho was just getting pummeled and nobody did anything. It was nice to see Seth Jarvis stand up to Zengus Girgis the other night. I mean, not the guy that I expected to fight in that situation, but better him than nobody. And then, again, shout out to Logan Stankoven, the second smallest guy in franchise history, was the first one to drop the gloves for the Hurricanes this year, or was the Jordan Stahl fight with Pitlick first? No, it was the Stankoven one was first.
Yeah, Stankoven went after, was it Was it Wilson or
No, it wasn't Wilson. It was somebody else on the Caps. But
Holloway,
like,
maybe, I don't know. Yeah,
yeah, it was somebody else on the Caps, and I was like, all right, cool, like that's nice to see, but you know, I want someone with some size who can actually throw and do stuff like that, and that will, even if he's on the bench, he sees something like that goes down, he's like, okay, cool, take notes, got your number,
yep,
and then he goes out and
yep,
handles it the next time he's on the ice. Like
yep.
a player like
And
that
will
needs to be a thing.
and may or may not get a boarding penalty or worse. Like, that's again, like, and it'll frustrate us.
It was
Like, we'll
Faravari
see it.
that
Faravari,
Stankoven thought.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Faravari, yeah, it was Wilson last year. It was Wilson last season, and that whole game with the when Chatfield absolutely threw Connor McMichael down to the ice.
yeah, and he wasn't even trying
But
to do that. Chatty's just not a fighter, though. I figured that
I
was
don't
pretty
care. I
well
loved it.
known.
I loved
Oh,
it.
I
I
did
loved
too.
seeing
I'm
it.
glad that
It was great.
I'm glad that McMichael didn't get hurt, even though I hate Connor McMichael. Like you've heard some of the names that I've called him, but I'm glad he didn't get his skull split open. But I still don't like him. Like two things can be true at once. I'm glad you're not dead. Also, I don't like you. But it's like,
Yeah,
but I want that type of
Reaction
player.
will cause that kind of reaction in his opponents and then some. Like,
Good.
and yet good. As head coach of the gold-winning Olympic team USA said, we've got whiskey. There are whiskey drinkers and there are milk drinkers.
Ryabkin's a
And
whiskey drinker
he's
or
a
a
whiskey
vodka drinker.
Slavin is a slave. Yeah, vodka. And so Slavin's a milk drinker. Let's be honest. Ryabkin's a stiff, hard liquor type.
Yeah,
Of guy.
I can see that. And that
Even
was
though
one
he's
of the,
not at the legal age yet.
that was one of the funny things. Well, in Canada he is.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, it's 18 in
That's
Canada.
true. He's in Quebec. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What's funny? The way I found out that was the case in Canada was actually the first time when Bryce Harper was still playing for the Nationals, like in his first year, and he was in Toronto, and somebody was interviewing him, and this was a completely uncalled for response by him, but Bryce Harper uncalled for response. Big surprise there.
Like you mentioned, it's kind of apropos. I mean, across sports, but I'd say there's a comparison there as well.
Yeah.
He is that kind of, like the FU, I don't care, and he'll hit just dinger after dinger and start a brawl.
Yeah, but there was some sort of there was some reporter there that said, hey, since you're in Toronto, are you going to have a drink since it's legal up here, because he was only like 18 at the time. And the correct response, or the civil response, I guess, would be, no sir, I don't drink, whatever, anything like that. Instead, Bryce Harper's like, what do you I don't drink, that's a clown question, why would I do that? And I'm like, bro, maybe he didn't know. You just had like,
see what I would be doing. Be like, yep, sure am.
Yeah. See, the thing is, I was expecting like something. It's like that. That's like, good morning, sir. How are you doing? Good morning. What's that mean? Do you want to do something about it? Like that was literally what was going on there. But it's like Ryabkin, but does have that type of mentality that like I can see him turning around and like saying something to fans behind the glass or something at a road game, or like doing the Kochekov thing where he's pointing at them in LA and doing the thing with the phone while he's.
Oh yeah. He'll go to the box for boarding and everyone will boo him, and he'll look around and he'll do the yep, bring it on. That's fine.
No, I really do like this player. Now, that does remind me, since Mason McTavish got mentioned, because like I said, I know that this conversation is going to start back up here soon with him getting scratched the other night. Whether it's warranted or not, I don't know. And I do like McTavish. Do you include Ryabkin in a trade for Mason McTavish if it's up to you?
Not McTavish. See, I would have included him for Thomas or someone like
absolutely.
that. But not McTavish, just because I think Ryabkin's going to be better. Like he's... like you said, they've got they're somewhat a similar player, except Ryabkin is even more physical, and he drives play a little bit better. So I mean, the defensive responsibility is not at the same yet, but assuming we can get him there, Ryabkin will be a better player. So not really.
Okay.
I would look elsewhere to fill our center need. We just not really the same discussion. But assuming we keep Ryabkin, unless we can find a really, really solid upgrade for center, that with term, they'll stick around for a while, because I do believe that assuming we keep him, nothing else changes, which let's be honest, the most likely outcome is nothing else changes with this team. is that Ryabkin is actually going to be the future top center. So unless we're getting back something that will not shorten our window, because a player in their 30s is gonna like we're not going to trade Ryabkin for a player in their 30s. I think we just shouldn't do that. Like really, no
I
matter who it
agree.
is. Like because
Absolutely.
that massively shortens the window, and by keeping Ryabkin, we keep our window extended. That's the thing. It's like that right now our window does not really have an expiration date. I mean, as much gack as we've given the team, they could get hot. They could just get hot at the right time and everything goes right and they catch lightning in a bottle and go all the way. That could happen. We've seen it happen. Plenty of Stanley Cups get awarded that way. So, as long as we stay competitive enough, that window stays open. And I'm not going to trade that extended window for 1 year of increased odds. Maybe 5 years of increased odds. Okay, fair. But not just one. Not just one or two. It's got to be a lot more than that.
Plus 5 years, that gives you a buffer to draft somebody else, develop somebody else.
Right.
So, like, in a way, you can extend a window even further by doing that, because then maybe you trade someone who's 20, but then you draft a new player 3 to 5 years later. They're ready and filling whatever role you need them to if everything goes right. So, I mean, in a way, that can, in a way, that's 40 chess as well. But I do agree. I would not.
That's what I was going to say. We'll talk about some of the players that I've had my eye on in the coming draft when we do our draft preview after the playoffs. So that kind of content will be coming. But yeah, I agree with you. Like if we're gonna get the center, if we're gonna use Ryabkin as a trade chip, which could happen, but if we're gonna use him as a trade chip, it's got to be to someone that we can have term for at least another 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That'll keep that the window open for as long as we can.
I agree. Well, my friend, that is all I have for this one. If you have anything else, go right ahead.
Yeah, just to close out, we got a player here, folks. This guy's the real deal. He's got some kinks to iron out. He's got some work he needs to do, but he's got what you can't teach, and that's I think the biggest thing. He's got the offensive talent. That's a gift from God. That's he's got the physicality and the attitude. That's also a gift. That's also not something that that's not something that can be developed. Everything else that we've talked about can be coached and developed, but he's got the intangibles and he's got the attitude and the talent that is just a gift. We got a player here, folks.
I agree. I really think we do. And Ryabkin is one of those guys that the fan base is generally very excited about. So that's part of the reason we're going to dedicate so much content to him, is because of how excited people are about him. And as far as everyone who's in the Hurricanes prospect pool right now, the one you will likely get the most impact out of long term and the largest impact on the score sheet is probably him.
Him or Nadeau?
Him or Nadeau, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping we see Nadeau soon at the NHL level, just in case he's needed in the playoffs. I would like for him to get some reps now. We will see. I'm not expecting that at the moment.
Gotta find a way to get Nick Delorier a game.
Yeah, I mean, either
I
that
don't
or
even
just
know if that's going to happen.
Have him sit in the back and just keep hitting the heavy bag for the next couple of weeks, and then just randomly throw him in the playoffs.
Right, yeah. I don't know, just give Carrier a spot rest maybe or something like that to make sure he doesn't hurt himself.
Then again, though, I'm afraid if Carrier stops playing, he'll get hurt. It's like he's been playing
right.
the entire season and not really getting hurt. It's like I'm afraid that if we're like, hey, take a night off, okay, cool, and then he steps on a Lego and he's out for 6 months. I don't want to take that chance. I really don't. It's like, no, you keep doing what you're doing. Clearly, you're fine.
Fair enough.
Carrier's been great though, but
yes,
yeah. So that's all we have on Ryabkin for now. We think in 2 weeks we will probably start doing the video stuff. The reason it's going to take 2 weeks is, one, we want to talk about someone else next week. We will reveal who that is very soon. And two, we have so much footage on this guy that we want to take the time to sort everything out. And we want to deliver some very quality stuff that will not take longer than, say, an hour at a time, kind of like we did with the Nadeau video. But this time we're going to do our best to add some graphics in. They might be live, they might be pre-recorded, because if I use the little Telestrator app that I've got, we might just need to do the pre-recorded style. And then if that's the case, you may see more than just 2 or 3 videos about him. You may see 6 over the course of the next few weeks. But this is one player that Matthew and I have been talking about that we were really going to go all in on to dissect because there is a lot to him.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Alrighty. Well, we will do the comments real quick because we have a few here, and then we
Oh,
will call it
nice.
a night. So let's see what we got here. Panthers J-Dub, what's up, buddy? Good to see you, pal. Ethan, what's up? I think we needed a team that was gonna gamble on him. Yeah, that's what Carolina did.
And that's one of the things that, for as much guff as we give this organization, one of the things they do extremely well is at the draft, and they capitalize on everyone else's mistakes. And I said it at the time, we are going to make every single other team in the NHL regret passing on Ryabkin.
I agree. Baseball in South Korea, players having a sig break during the game. Yeah,
that's funny.
I've seen that before. Yeah, no, I mean, Ally Afredi used to have cigarettes in between periods in the NHL. You can't do that now, obviously, but it's like, let people think Russia equal bad, and we will draft all the Ivans. Yeah, pretty much. By the way, very soon there will be Limitov content. I am working on that as we speak.
Good, because I think we got
I really like him. I really like Limitov. Yeah. I mean, he was the one who said the thing about when they asked him who's the best defenseman.
Me in 5 years.
Me in 5 years. I'm like,
Me in
what?
5 years.
Either one, it's going to be true, or 2, it's going to blow up in your face. Either way, you're on
the clock.
Conviction. Yeah, I like it. I'm gonna get me a little watch.
Just gonna get a pocket watch. Yeah,
I'm just gonna have it sitting right here, and I'm just gonna randomly do that with it. Time's a ticking. I can't wait to see Ryabkin up at some point. Yeah, that's going to be a couple of years. The next time you'll really get some visibility on him will be the prospect showcase and preseason. I think you'll see him. Other than that, you won't see him much. But yeah, the prospects tournament, the prospect camp, training camp, and the preseason is where I think that we'll start seeing a lot of Ryabkin. That's where we need to see the most progress, though, because that way we know that during the offseason he was doing the stuff he needed to do, that he's doing things to get himself in better shape, because there's always room to improve when it comes to the fitness aspect of things. And then, it's like if we see one player who's made progress going into summer come back and be even better early on in training camp and in preseason and everything like that, then that's a great sign for his development.
Something else that actually I just thought of this, he should not be in juniors again after this year.
It's not fair. He should be.
There's no, it's not fair to him. Frankly, it's not fair to everyone, like all of his opponents. Like there's no point in keeping him around there. He's nothing more he can really learn there. He has nothing more to prove. Now, for whatever reason, if he won't get top minutes or like top 6 minutes in Chicago, what would you say about him playing in Greensboro, where he could get top minutes?
Not for long. I wouldn't want him to be there long. Okay. The thing is, it's like people don't understand how big of a jump it is from NHL to AHL, and it's not much different in terms of the talent gap if you're going from AHL to ECHL. He would be a little bit better off in that league than he would be in the Q, if you ask me. Just because he'd be playing against other grown men, and there's a lot more of an emphasis on defense in that league.
Right.
That's somewhere I wouldn't want him to be for longer than, say, half a season. Then I think you stunt his development if he stays down there any longer than that. And half season is the max.
Yeah. Because Robitaille played there and developed, and that helped him, I think.
It did. Well, part of that was because of the whole Canes and Wolves not having the affiliation that one year, so that was more of a organizational necessity. Him playing in the E. Wait, that was 2 years ago, right? That I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Before they reaffiliated. Okay, I'm just making sure I had that right. I wouldn't want him being there long. Maybe just send him there long enough to remember, hey, this is what happens in a league where people actually play defense, and where you're playing against a bunch of people who are your age, your size, and somewhat of your skill. And then get him back up to the American League as quickly as possible.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, I would just want him there long enough to be like, give him something that's not as big of a jump from the Q to the American League. It'll be a little bit smoother if he went to the E for a little bit and then came to the American League, I think. if you even need to do that. As good of a player as he's showing that he is in the queue, that might not even be necessary.
You're right.
If it's deemed necessary, as long as he's not there for long, I'd be fine with that. But a whole season or anything like that, don't even think about it.
Fair enough.
Slavin is an altar boy, literally.
Literally,
He
yeah.
is. Faravari, in reference to what we were discussing earlier, give me a Jim Bean after the milk.
Jim Bean, yeah.
Ryabkin will be a 1C before I ever get
Yeah.
my 2C.
Yeah, yep. You're not wrong. Which is why, I mean, I say this because, I tell you what, who the 2C will be. You know who the future 2C is for the Carolina Hurricanes? Sebastian Aho. Yep.
I'm good with that. Yep.
That's
his skill set, though. It's
gonna
like
happen. That's what's gonna like. It's Ryabkin is like by age 25, which is in 6 years. That could happen. That could very well be the case with Ryabkin as 1C, at least in terms of like production, and Aho as 2C. Yeah. You can easily see that happening.
Yeah. And see, the thing about it is, it's like, I won't go into this for too long because I know I've ranted about this a million times because this particular topic is something I'm very passionate about. I get tired of people calling Aho a 2C now because I'm like, name 31 centers in the league better than him. Can you do it? No? Okay, then STFU. That day is coming, though, where he is going to need that reduced role. Ryabkin, should he pan out in 3 to 5 years, eventually will be potentially the guy who takes over that mantle. But that is something that needs to be planned for. It just doesn't need to happen tomorrow because that irritates me when people say that Aho's a 2C considering who developed him into the player that he was, and that being Brendamore, and part of people saying, well, nothing that ever goes wrong is Rod's fault. It's because the top line center is not a top line center. And I'm like, the top line center who is coaching the team, who won a Stanley Cup, developed the current top line center. Your argument is oxymoronic, and in your attempt to defend Brendamore, you are insulting him, and you're insulting the player that he made.
So Aho is only slightly worse than Sasha Barkov.
By that much.
By that, it's not a whole lot. In fact, if you factor in just health overall of the health of the career, Aho definitely comes out ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of raw talent, Aho they're basically the exact same player, except Barkov is just a little bit better.
A little bit. And that's keeping in mind that Barkov's been in the league a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like game on their stick. If you're just looking at offense, I'm taking Aho. If you're looking at a complete game, Barkov. But just offense, Aho.
Yeah.
Ethan Reed said, rest Martinook for the playoffs. I'm not opposed to that, man. I'm glad he scored
on Vassy. He scored on Vassy. All right.
That was so cool to see that. But it's clear he's playing through. People are like, he's playing through. They say a injury as in singular, or an injury, I should say, if I want my grammar to be correct. I think it's more than one, because it's just
probably.
Yeah, because I mean,
we got the formula at least for Vasilevsky. It's the same formula for Brodeur.
Go wide and shoot.
Yeah, go wide and shoot. Just fling it.
Can we get Eric Cole out of retirement? He was really good at that. I might get to meet him soon.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's gonna be coaching the Charleston Colonials at of the NCDC out here. So I've got some stuff I'm gonna try to get signed for him. But I'm gonna.
It's still on my bucket list to meet a Hurricanes player. I've been in the same room as one, but that was in church. So
the only one I ever met was I met Eric Stahl and Jesse Boleries very briefly on a school field trip, and I was too afraid because I was in middle school and I was a small kid. I was afraid to ask Eric Stahl for his autograph just because of how big he was. Like, guy had nicest guy in the world, terrifying presence for me when I was in 6th grade, though. Absolutely terrifying. I was afraid of him, and I had no reason to be. It's like he had no desire to do me any harm, but he was just... I was more afraid of him than Jesse Boleries. Like, what does that tell you? But he just had this imposing presence about him. Like he really did. He was
large.
Yeah, it's just like, but he just had this
large human.
Yeah, he just had this. He just took over a room by walking into it. I mean, granted, I was in 6th grade. That wasn't hard to due to me at that point, because like everything was scary to me because I was like 4'3" or whatever I was back then, and I was just, but yeah,
It's
I was
always
just like,
intimidating when you meet someone and you have to go like this.
yeah, I had to do that like just to like look at him. Like the
Yeah.
dude was ginormous compared to me, and I was just like I was terrified of him. Plus, I'd seen him play, so I knew what he was capable of. Like, um, let's see what else we got here. J-Dub says, I think having a core in Chicago for a couple of years helps them sending new prospects there. Yep. I agree, Brandon. Even if we somehow got a 1C now, they would be a 1A and 1B at the best. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Like, let's just say Carolina did magically acquire Robert Thomas. It's still a 1A, 1B situation. It just kind of depends on what you need at that point.
We don't number the lines.
Yeah, we don't number the lines anyway, as they say.
Yeah.
If I had $1 for every coach I've heard say that. Barkov is my favorite C not named Aho.
Yep, yeah, mine too. He's one of my favorite players not on the Hurricanes.
Him and Robert Thomas are my two favorite centers outside of the Hurricanes organization. Yeah, I do love. Yeah, that's part of the reason I like Aho so much is because of all the similarities.
I was really sad when Florida extended him. I was hoping.
I was hoping for it, man. I was like, there's got to be someone, and that's when Florida was still bad. I was like, maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a way it can get done.
I was upset.
Aho has roughly the same points per game average as Eichel. Eichel gets slobbed by the league and media. Show some respect for Seabass. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I like Jack Eichel. I'm a big Eichel guy, but the gap between them is not very big. Now, accounting for the fact that Jack Eichel had to have an experimental surgery to be able to play at the level he's playing.
That's true. Also, he was second overall pick, and
to Connor McDavid.
To Connor McDavid, and he would have been first overall pick in basically any other draft.
Yeah, and, if you go second to Connor McDavid, you're still a damn good hockey player.
Yeah, and then it goes to Vegas, and Vegas is media darling. So yeah, but hey, he's an American hero. That's
yes.
Respect for Jack Eichel too.
No, I've always liked Eichel. But yeah, it's like when
we should have pulled the trigger on that trade. We should have gotten him.
Out of all the ones we've missed out on, I think that one might hurt the most, even though it wasn't so publicized.
So that's, I guess, I don't know if we have enough time for this. This is the right stream.
Yeah, I got time. It's just we were done talking about Ryabkin, so we can
talk
about some stuff. Yeah,
like it's Eichel or Matthew Tkachuk. We had the opportunity to get him. Either one of them would have cost us. Either one of them would have cost us Jarvis.
That's true. No, Tkachuk wouldn't have. It was Natchez that Waddell didn't want to give up for Tkachuk.
I thought he was on the team. I heard the opposite. I heard that we were taking Natchez and that Calgary demanded Jarvis. That's what I thought.
No, it was Natchez they didn't want to give up. Yeah, Calgary wanted Natchez.
That's even worse.
That is way worse. Yeah, it was Natchez that. Yeah, because I mean, I think they made it abundantly clear that Svechnikov would have gone before Jarvis.
Yeah.
Which I'm really glad he didn't.
Yeah, me too. But I guess so. In the abstract, then I guess whether or not that was actually what was actually going down, but like if you would have if you could have pulled the trigger on that trade for Eichel or Tkachuk and it cost us Jarvis, would you do it?
No, because when if you do that, the problem with it is if you do that, you take like trading Jarvis is also like trading 1/4 of Sebastian Aho at the same time. So no, that's the problem.
But golly, I mean, Florida, they had the balls to pull off that trading, their franchise centerpiece in Huberdeau along with Weegar, who are stellar with them, and they won 2 cups.
Yeah, and Weegar's already found a new address.
Like with Vegas, they put out Tuck and Krebs and they original Vegas members and ship them off for original Misfits and ship them off to get Eichel, and they won a cup.
Yeah,
it would hurt because I love Jarvis. Jarvis is he's the funniest person in the league, probably one of the best attitudes in the league. We might have won a cup if we'd made one of those deals.
Dude, that I wouldn't want to be put in that position to make that decision because I think at that point I would be the guy who says no, just because of how good Jarvis was with Aho, because I feel like I'd be losing a little bit of Aho if I traded Jarvis.
It still is, yeah. I mean, yeah.
I mean, he was already that good with him then, because I remember when people were worried about Teravainen not coming back, and don't get me wrong, I liked Teravainen, but I was like, you don't need him when you have Jarvis. There's no point in paying him when you already have Jarvis. So
me when his contract's up, he'll circle back around to us.
Oh no, it's not going to take that long. They're going to get him at the deadline next year.
They're going to get him at the next year
when he's a UFA. Yeah, they'll get him.
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee you right now, it's going to be like, all right, are we going to make a bit? This is going to be the year the big move is happening. And you know,
the big move is terrifying.
And then it's like Teravainen for a 4th rounder on an expiring contract, and it's going to be like, Teuvo Teravainen, it is, champ. I mean, well, we know. Well, we I can already see the press release.
Best I can do is Teuvo.
Best I can do is Teuvo Teravainen.
Yeah.
I can see the press conference. Well, Teuvo played here before. We already know that he's a good fit with the organization, so we just brought him back. I can already see that happening. Yeah. But I wouldn't be opposed to that. I just wouldn't want it to be the only move. That's the only thing. I'm hoping that
he's older than Aho, isn't he? Yeah. He's like a year older. He's at least a year older, like a year or two.
And then also to recognize the fact that, like, you also have to make a move to, unless you plan on bringing either or both of them back, Martinook and Stahl are both entering the last year of their contracts next year.
That's the thing. It's like what irks me about what happened to this deadline is that it is going to be a real shame if we can't get Jordan Stahl up with us. That's going to be a real shame.
I don't want that to happen. I want him to.
That's which means that it's this year or next year. I mean, it won't be, like I said, that's not the team's. It's not the franchise window, but it is Stahl's window,
and that should matter.
Yeah, it should matter. Like I said, felt that they owed it to this core for being number one in the East.
Mm-hmm.
Number one in the East, and Nick Delorier is the best we do.
That's why I was disappointed.
I understand prices were ridiculous. I understand that, I think New York was demanding like either Blake or Stankoven to get Vincent Trocheck, which no.
This is Chris Drury we were talking about. They were probably asking for Nikishin.
Yeah, you're right. So they're probably
Chris Drury.
Something really, really stupid. I don't know. I understand prices were ridiculous. I understand Nick Waugh was going for a 1st round pick. Yeah, well, at least we kept all our prospects. I'll say that.
Yeah, and then Summer gives.
At least we'll have content for our channel.
Yes, well, Summer gives you some more flexibility to get stuff like that done because you're not.
Yeah.
It's not so time sensitive when you don't have a deadline. The only thing you're, as far as being up against the clock, the only thing you're up against is what other teams can offer, and there's not a whole lot of other teams that can offer what Carolina can. So that I'm not too worried about. But I'm not saying that this team as is can't get it done. I just don't think the likeliness of it is very high, but there's more about that coming on the main channel. And at the end of the regular season, there will be... Actually, this is a good time for me to announce this. So there will be one pre-recorded video right after Game 82 ends talking about how the team did over the regular season in isolation, how I think they're going to do in the playoffs. Then I'm going to do the series forecast for whoever the first round is. That'll be live. And then I'm going to do a 24-hour countdown, not a 24-hour stream, before some people ask me for that. A 24-hour countdown where I'm going to try to have a ton of guests. I'm going to invite Katie, Tom Ray, Aaron, let's see, Rachel Barkley. Huh?
You can invite me? Am I?
well, you and AB are definitely going to be there.
Yeah.
Sam from Caniac Report. But not like you guys would be there the whole time. It's everybody else. It's going to be like 30-minute time slots or whatever, where just kind of talk about stuff and everything like that, and do that for like our 24-hour countdown to puck drop on the playoffs this year. So I'm going to invite all those guys. I'm going to see what the Carolina Crazy-Acts are up to. I'm going to hit up everybody and see who wants to jump in on that.
I like them, by the way. Carolina Crazy-Acts.
Oh, they're cool. And, it's like the cool thing with their videos. They're up to date, like they're with the time, so they know how to do all the cool sound effects and everything. Like I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I just get on here and talk and make
They got
slides.
the Gen Z marketing down, basically.
Yeah, so they know how to do that stuff. Like it's very impressive how they do that stuff. Like they make a video and randomly the Wilhelm scream is in there and it's perfectly timed. I don't know how to do stuff like that. They're really good at it. The best I could do is say send X person to China. Like that's about all I've got.
Or do a pocket watch beam without the pocket watch.
Yeah, I've got to. You know what? I can just make one out of this. I'll tie a string to it and just hold it right here and draw numbers on it. But, yeah, I'm gonna do something like that. But I'm gonna invite all those guys on. And we'll see if we can just do some. You, me, and AB, of course, will be the main ones, and we'll just slot everybody some time. I might bring on a 4th main host, and I was thinking maybe Katie for that. So. because like out of all the people I interact with outside of our little network, I think she's probably the one I talk to the most.
Katie's great.
Yeah, Katie is awesome. And then considering that her other favorite team is someone that Carolina could potentially see should they advance to the Stanley Cup Finals, that would
Yeah,
be
well,
helpful insight.
we will see where her loyalties truly lie if that
Yeah,
happens.
we
So
will
I'm
at
kinda
that
looking
point.
for it.
Either that, or she's going to be like yeah, she's going to be like Italy in World War One. She's going to switch sides halfway through the series. And just...
Yeah, fair weather, just going with sticking your finger in the wind.
Yeah, it's
All
just,
right.
or maybe she just wakes up and flip. Or
What a
switch.
series that would be, though.
Or actually, you know what I'm gonna get? I'm gonna get her the Harvey Dent's Two-Face coin from Batman, and I'm gonna mail it to her and just be like, whichever team you want to cheer for that day, you just flip the coin that morning,
Flip the
and then
coin.
it's not your fault anymore. The only morality in a cruel world is chance.
That's right. Or that's so goes the line.
Actually, no,
All
what
right.
I'll hit her with if she goes the Avalanche play, I'm gonna constantly hit her with the "you either die a hero or you live long
We
enough
live
to
long
see
enough
yourself."
to become a villain. That's right.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit her with those memes all the time.
Uh,
But let's get these last 3 comments here.
Sounds good.
Scott Thomas says, "I like Tage Thompson." That's the number 1 Tage Thomas fan right there.
Do you now? Do you now?
You
Yeah,
sure
have we
about
talked
that?
about him? Yeah, we talked about him on his stream at all, Brandon. Have we done that?
Yeah, we did. It's like, and I had the audacity to say, "Well, I like Robert Thomas more," and he's like, he's like the monkey from Family Guy pointing at me, like. But yeah, no, like I'm a big Tage Thompson guy, but this guy right here, he's a big Tage Thompson fan.
American hero, Tage Thompson, gold medal,
Great player.
and now Buffalo is just never going to lose again.
No, they finally figured it out, and I was hoping
Yep.
maybe just stay
A
bad
little bit more
bit
Kevin
longer.
Adams. No,
Just he did his job as long as he could, being
as long as he could.
acting as an
Yeah.
insurgency or operating an insurgency on behalf of the Carolina Hurricanes. So he tried. He did plenty of damage, but not enough. They asked SBA just so Rod would veto it. Wow.
Oh, man.
Wow,
Oh,
you
dear.
went there.
Oh man, yeah, there we go. Honestly, it probably is better for the organization if he's not a terrible player on the Wolves. He's
Yeah,
fine.
I just don't think he's a.
But it's
NHL
probably better for the
player.
organization if he's not in it.
Yeah. But damn, that was wow. All right, last one here. Ethan Reed says the only price I would have paid at the deadline was the Kadri move with the retention. Our equivalent would have been to overpay, but not too bad. I just think it was the Avs or nothing for him, especially since he played there before. I
Probably
wasn't big
right.
on getting Kadri.
Yeah, there's also actually, well, I'll tell you something about a thought of that that I want to share in private with you, Brandon, on Kadri, because I think actually there's more than meets the eye to that situation.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, on that note, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. We will be back next week with some content, this time probably regarding a defenseman, and then the week after that, we will continue our series on Ivan Ryabkin. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see you next time.